Good evening, viewers and listeners. Welcome to another edition of this program, Serving the People, brought to you by the Democratic Republican Party, the DRP, right here on SVG TV every Wednesday at 6:30 p.m. I'm your host, Mrs. Anissa Batiste. Please let us start with a word of prayer. Dear Father in heaven, do bless our viewers and listeners with inspiration continually as we seek to understand the importance and the role of women and men in our society in leadership. I pray, dear Lord, as they look at the interviews of women around the world who are doing great things in their countries, that they would be encouraged to encourage our women folk in political participation in our country. In Jesus' name I pray with thanksgiving. Amen. And now, dear viewers, remember that if you wish to contact this program, you may call us at the telephone number on your screen. It is 528-4169. That's 528-4169. You may also send an email to our address, which is servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com. Again, servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com. This information would be repeated at the end of the program for your assistance. Now, in this evening's program, we continue to show you highlights from the International Women's Day Conference 2013, hosted by the Women's Democracy Network in Washington, D.C. in March, which I attended. In this evening's program, you will hear particularly from participants from Ukraine as well as from Zimbabwe. So, let me take the opportunity to share with you some information first about our participant from the Ukraine, Maria. Now, in Ukraine, as in many other countries of the world, we have a problem still with not enough women participating in politics. And so, Maria belongs to an organization. The name of the organization is the Women's Consortium of Ukraine. She is the director of the civil society organization called the Women's Consortium of Ukraine, and they collaborate with the WDN's chapter in Ukraine to conduct work in Ukraine, encouraging more women to be participative in politics there. We are told that they were able to mobilize political parties to include more women at the top of their candidate list, and they were able to assess the issue of gender inclusion, or how much women are included in political party leadership, and to find certain and to come up with certain findings which were able to predict the outcome of the elections in 2012 with respect to how many women they expected to win. And they actually were accurate. But essentially, Maria's Women's Consortium of Ukraine is involved in getting women more involved in leadership in their society, including in participative politics. Listen to Maria in this presentation.
I'm from Ukraine. I work for the non-governmental organization for about 12 years. Started from the volunteer and reaching to the position of the chief executive of the organization. And today, Women's Consortium of Ukraine, I believe, is one of the unique and strong network of local organizations that advocate for women's rights in Ukraine. Political participation is only one out of 4 priorities that we identify as we identified them in our strategy in 2011. And this is, I believe, the time when we started to collaborate more closely with the WDN network on the issue of women's political participation. As in Ukraine, we never for 20 years of our independence have the representation of women in the parliament of Ukraine that would exceed 8% of seats. So we, as last year we had the elections to the Ukrainian parliament, we joint efforts of many organizations to do a sort of parallel campaign for women's participation, as we had lots of promises from our political leaders, the men, who said that they are ready to increase the representation of women. So it was necessary to observe how well they would be able to meet these promises, and the other aim was to put the issue of political participation of women on the agenda of media, because what we see is one of the challenge in it is that women are not so much visible due to probably the lack of communication skills, due to different reasons, lack of resources, etc. We didn't reach a lot in the numbers. Today we have 10% of women in the parliament, but what I see is one of the big achievement is that we managed to unite the efforts of different actors, stakeholders who should be responsible for the improvement of the situation. Women's deputies, NGO leaders, and experts who are working in this field and helping the politicians to promote themselves. Because this is another challenge, I believe, in this that prevent increase the number of women in these elected bodies, that they work in a sort of parallel, separately. Women deputies not always represent, act as advocates for women's interests and representation. This is where we try to change the situation, and after these elections we of course don't stop, we keep working. Now we are finalizing the results of our meeting with active women in the regions, where we discussed what challenges they faced during the elections, so that we could create the next steps and the next strategy for the election, the local election in 2014, next year in October. As I said, in Ukraine there are many different organizations, networks, active groups of women and those who promote gender equality. And one of the challenges for WDN in this big range of organizations is to find this niche that would make this network unique and visible in its expertise. And what we discussed just recently with the colleagues of WDN, that maybe this women's mentorship program for young activists could be such a business card that is can be implemented in the network. So here I am to learn from you and to pass this experience to the colleagues. It was a bit unexpected for me, a big surprise that I was selected. Thank you very much. But I take it as a good work of the whole team that we did in Ukraine, and I would be able to share this experience. That is something that is useful. Thank you.
Well, I think that WDN sometimes comes into the country, or always comes into the country, and finds ways to unite women. And that's, I think, what is already making us stand out. But I do agree that always you don't want to duplicate. You always want to be either doing the work or letting others do the work and complement. And I think that one of the great and interesting things that the Ukraine country chapter accomplished last year, prior to the elections and during the elections, was the gender monitoring of elections. Basically monitoring of election process and taking that angle of how women are portrayed in the elections. How are they present there? How are they present in the newspapers? And how the newspapers are describing the women? Only as, what are they wearing, or more substance on what issues they stand for? How are they present on the party lists? How are they present in the speeches and in the meetings of the political parties, etc.? It was interesting. I encourage you to talk to Maria, because it was interesting that the chapter members were able to predict the outcome of elections. Almost, or would you say completely, right? How the percentage of women that will be in the parliament. And for us, it was a surprise. I don't know if it was for you, but it was a very pleasant surprise. And the fact that these women coming from different parties, different organizations, uniting, and doing something pretty unique, what was tried once in Moldova, and actually Michelle kind of spotted this project in Moldova, and then we suggested to our Ukraine chapter, was a unique project, but could be definitely replicated in other countries. And we encourage you to talk to Maria and to us. We'd encourage you to take that upon yourselves. It's doable with a wish and a really determination of women.
Yes, dear viewers. I apologize for the little shakiness of the video. I was doing all of this footage by myself. I tried very much to capture it even while I was a participant, so I could share it with you, and I'm glad that I could do that. And in this next presentation, you will hear from a young lady from Zimbabwe, and her name is Sally Dura. And Sally, along with these other women whose stories I have shared with you, has been doing a wonderful work in her country in Zimbabwe. She's a young woman like many of us, but she has been involved in a lot of work involving training women in Zimbabwe to understand what political participation is about. She is the national coordinator for the Assembly of Women, Movement for Democratic Change Party, and she is addressing the issue of low levels of participation of women in politics in Zimbabwe. We are told that she's working hard to provide capacity building opportunities for the members, women in her party, and to identify leadership positions for women. In addition, she's conducting women's political education forums through the civil society organization, Women in Politics Support Unit throughout the country. And together, they are able to encourage more women to get signed up to vote, more women to become volunteers in election processes, and more women generally to be participants in elected politics. So Sally shared a lot of her experiences with us, and take a look at her presentation.
Hi to you all, and thank you WDN for making me grow and empowering me to lead in my different spaces. I'm from Zimbabwe, south of Africa, near South Africa, and Zimbabwe is in the middle of a transition right now from dictatorship to democracy. We are currently in a coalition government where Robert Mugabe from ZANU-PF, who have been the dictator for the past 31 years, is now sharing power with the Prime Minister, Richard Changrai. So it's a negotiated government where we won election as the Movement for Democratic Change, but we were not streetwise in terms of the power transfer process. So the Zimbabwean context is where there's a coalition government. We are in the middle of a transition, and we are recently going to get into our referendum on the 16th of March, where we will get a constitution. resolution that is a negotiated document. But for the women of Zimbabwe, it's the best deal that we can ever get, because we have more or less about 75 to 80% of what women need across all political parties and social pressures in the country. We have a good deal of 50% quota, representation of women in leadership. We have affirmative action of about 60 seats for the parliament for about 2 terms. That is a 10-year affirmative action deal. So it's a good deal for women of Zimbabwe, and all of them across political parties and pressures are campaigning for a vote yes. So where I am positioned in Zimbabwe is professionally, I'm employed by the Movement for Democratic Change, which is a social democratic political party in Zimbabwe, led by the current Prime Minister. So here it's organized in 3 wings, where there's a main wing, the women's wing, and the youth wing. And I'm a technical person who is a national coordinator for the Assembly of Women. So my responsibility is really around the overall administration of that wing, facilitating alignment of women across the political party wings, mainstreaming gender in all party processes, programs, and any initiatives. And in terms of my personal political career, I'm positioned in the youth movement as a national chairperson for Youth Forum, which is a mass movement for young people. We work with youths in marginalized communities, the mining areas, the farming areas, and the high-density suburbs. So we had an inaugural congress last year, and they elected me to be their national chairperson. So mostly we work on youth participation in democracy, in governance, and youth empowerment in general. And then as a feminist in Zimbabwe, I'm also involved in the women's movement, where I am chairing the Harare chapter, which is the capital region. And here it's a network of individuals who advocate and lobby for women's rights in Zimbabwe. So that's where I am positioned. Why I got involved in politics is I was a history student, and I'm a development practitioner by training. But it has been frustrating that when I read about the history of the world and Zimbabwe, it's also male, and you know, it's about these boys, it's about when you open a book, it's about Mussolini, it's about Hitler, it's about, you know, and I'm not convinced that there were no women that were doing things during their times. So I get frustrated that when I look at women and how we contribute to different processes, we are disappeared in the documentation of what we bring into the world. And by us being more than 52%, I really get frustrated that, you know, we put so much, but we are undercovered and we are disappeared when it comes to power. So, you know, and also politics is so mystified. There's this secret where people don't want to share what's happening, where, who is doing what, but you know, when you wake up, you know, someone already knows what's going to happen that day. Someone knows where the money is going. Someone knows who is going to access what and when. So as a woman, and realizing that women don't have access to basic health services, access to property, access to money, access to education, and access to power, I really felt the agency in me that, you know, it's time we take on the systems. It's time we get involved, and it's time we make women hungry for power, hungry for information, so that, you know, we strategically position them for power transfer so that they can change the status quo. And I was also getting tired as a feminist. I've been a practicing feminist for about 10 years, but we are still talking about the same issues. We are marginalized, we don't have access to education. So I was feeling like I'm getting tired. Why should my issues of today be the same as my grandmother's issues? Something have to change. So I have this agenda that women need to actively participate. And somehow, you know, when women are in political spaces, they are manipulated, or they are saying, you know, you girls go and play in your women's wings. So sometimes our eyes are diverted from the actual ball, where we have to focus on what we are wearing, who is sleeping with who, what's the fashion of the day, and the boys send us to go and make tea for them while they make decisions. So I'm at a point in my life where I really feel that we need to create this hunger for political participation for women. We need to make them interested, and we need to demystify and redefine politics so that it's smart, it's interesting, it's not as dirty as it is projected out there. So my involvement with WDN was since 2009, where we went through a conference in Nairobi and were trained, and I also participated in the South Sudan capacity development training for women in political parties there. And there was also a Women's Leadership Academy in my country, which they facilitated, and women were taken to another level of political consciousness and leadership. And as a person, I've also been strengthened to initiate a women's political education forum in my country. Thank you, WDN. So, here we engage with women from all political parties and from the student movement, from the Christian movement, from the corporate world, and women meet together, even the vendors from the informal sectors, and talk about what is politics, why should women participate, what are the tangible opportunities within where they are, and after a session they then get to commit to say, after this process that I've gone through, what do I want to do? Am I at a level where I just want to go and vote, and then we link them to where they can go and register to vote? Can I just be a campaign volunteer, and they sign up for their campaign volunteer? Some say maybe I just want to be an election observer, because our elections are governed by election bodies. So as an independent election official, we then strategically link them there. So we have reached about 389 women in total, and across all political parties, and it has been good. And when I look at the Zimbabwean context now, it's an opportunity for women to get involved. There are so many opportunities that women are trusted. Men don't take us seriously. They think if you're coming together, no, they're just girls, they'll gossip anyway. We'll divide them and rule them. So I just like that context where women can be trusted. We get police clearance to do whatever we want to do, because they still think we are not yet very, very, very a threat to their status quo. And then also that we are signatory to many regional and international instruments on women's rights. So we had a target for the SADC Protocol on Gender and Development for 50% representation by 2015. But now when I look at the Zimbabwean context, while the law is for the 50% representation, we still have a lot of work to do, because now we are preparing for an election which is to come this year. But when I look at the women that I'm working with from my party, the ones that have submitted applications for a primary election, they're about 24%. So there's still work to be done. We need a 5-year strategy to really, really position women. So yeah, we have started the journey, but I'm impressed that I can see the results. And my looking forward to this process is I've been inspired by all of your stories, and I am learning quite a lot and writing my take homes that I'll take from all of you. So I really look forward to learning more, to connecting with you more, and see how best we can be sharing best practices. And I also inspire to establish an academy or an institute in my country which will really demystify politics, empower women to lead, and create a support system for women in leadership. Because sometimes while the boys still have the purse, we have some resources that will enable us to be a powerful force. Some can donate time, some can donate the energies that they have without necessarily giving money. So I want that volunteer network in my country, where when we talk of political participation, we'll talk about the real issues. We will see who has what to put on the table that is not necessarily monetary, and how we can link people across generations. So yes, that's me for now. I know when I leave, and by the day I'll be getting to another level. So thank you, WDN, and thank you to you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sally. I have to say one quick thing, which is so interesting, and Sally really embodies here, and that's what I was talking about earlier with the network. Women helping women. That's our motto. And so all of the trainers we use are women, because we want to show women there are experts in every field. We don't want to sort of unintentionally reinforce that stereotype that there aren't women experts in a field. So every training we do is led by women experts. And it's really exciting to me, because I'll start with, so Sally, who we used to call one of the babies of WDN, because she was very young when she came to WDN and knew. And it was such a moment of pride for me last year. We were in Juba, South Sudan. And those of you know Juba, South Sudan is going through, just decades of civil war, and the women are trying so hard to rebuild. And it was so exciting because we had Sally as one of our trainers. And just to see her now giving back to the network and spending 3 days in Juba with the women and teaching them how to be politically active. And then 6 months later, we had Hafsad go to Zimbabwe to share her experiences as a women leader to help Sally in her trainings. And I just love that about the network, because it's all recognizing that we all have expertises in certain areas and how we can, weave these opportunities. And so that was really neat. And I am looking at all of you because we hope to use you all as trainers in other countries. I know Salima has done a lot of this for us. And also the last thing is the political academy she was talking about. Again, another really cool project. We call it translating political participation. And it's what I talked about earlier. Well, what does it mean to be politically active? There's, in a lot of our countries, we're not exactly sure what that means. And there can be a lot of overlap between civil society and political participation. And so Sally really sits down with women and says, this is what it means. We have this handbook, and again, another example, where did that come from? Cameroon. Our women in Cameroon had started this project, and then Sally helped define it and modify it for Zimbabwe. So all of our projects really are using experiences of other women and making sure they work for our country experiences. So another great project for you to follow up on.
Yes, my dear viewers, I hope you were inspired to know that women around the world are doing great things. Now are not the days when women were told they couldn't do this and they couldn't do that. A lot of countries have become more modern, and even women from Arab countries, as you would have seen, are taking bold and courageous steps and standing up and saying, look, we have a voice too. We have things to say, and our contribution is equally valid as that of our male counterparts. Serving the people makes no distinction between men and women when it comes to leadership, and certainly not political leadership. And this is why we are not afraid, for example, to have a woman founder of a party, the Democratic Republican Party in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, yours truly, Anissa Batiste, the founder. And we encourage other women to get involved in politics, whether through being candidates, whether being at the head of your women's arm of your party, but just realizing that you don't have to sit down on the sidelines. You can get up and you can do something and you can make your equal contribution, and nobody should tell you you can't do it just because you are a woman. For God is no respecter of persons, and regardless of who you are, as long as you have the ability, you work hard, you are honest and caring and loving of the people, you can do the job. So, remember that you may contact us. The telephone number is on your screen. It is 528-4169. That's 528-4169. And there you would be able to reach our secretary, who will speak to you and give you information accordingly. And if you want to email us, the address is on your screen also. It's servingthepeople.ab@gmail.com. Thank you for viewing. Until next time, God bless you.